the iPhone XR, and I think the people who would buy this can be segregated into two groups. First, the ones who will be upgrading from the previous iPhones with the home button and those bezels, and the second group of people who would be switching from Android to iOS, since that is always a possibility. Now, if you're switching from an Android, well, this is an iPhone, it will clearly feel and operate in a different manner. But even if you're switching from a previous iPhone, which is hopefully not the iPhone X, this is still going to feel very different, and there are a couple of reasons for that. First, the colors. The colors, in my opinion, are the USP of the XR. I mean, when was the last time you used a phone that wasn't black or white or gold or rose gold? I got the red one because MKBHD praised it a lot, and it actually looks pretty nice. Although I just wish it was slightly more saturated, but as usual, that's probably just me. Now, it's a clean design just like last year, so no additional information at the rear, at least not here in India, which is pretty cool. The buttons, however, are not super tactile. I remember the ones in the OnePlus 6 were much more clicky. The frame is matte finish, and in every color it's slightly darker than the glass rear, which I like. Also, mine hasn't scratched up yet, maybe because it's pretty good at hiding the scratches, but I've had a case on since day one, so there's a better possibility that it just hasn't scratched up. Speaking of cases, you can't really use the XR without one. Even though it feels pretty substantial in the hand because of the thickness and the weight, the combination of its size and its slipperiness makes it really easy to fall out of your hands. I mean, this is a big phone, and being a product of a luxury brand, it has massive repair costs if you break it. So you inevitably would have to put a case on it, the least being a bumper. The ones that I always recommend, which I also personally use, are from Rhinoshield. They make both bumpers and full solid suit cases that cover the entire phone. They are also extremely tough and rigid, come in a variety of textures, and you can also choose different colored buttons, which are also super tactile, which is awesome. Basically, if you get these, you're sorted. I'll leave these linked below, and you can also use my name as a discount code. Enjoy! Next, of course, the display. Now, this won't feel different if you are upgrading from a previous iPhone, apart from, of course, the really wide new aspect ratio, and maybe the True Tone functionality if you didn't have it before. I usually don't use it because in every lighting condition, it just makes the display much more warmer, and I can't make sense about that. But the display will feel especially different if you belong to the second group, because chances are the Android phone you're using right now, irrespective of the price, has at least a 1080p display. And you will be able to tell the difference if you put it side by side to a higher resolution display. You will also not be able to watch true 1080p videos on YouTube, and Instagram won't be able to load 1080p blocks of images, and you'll get used to it, like I did. Honestly, after 45 days, the lower resolution and the lack of 3D touch does not bother me at all now. It's the viewing angles and the display brightness that still do. That is the most practical difference that you will notice from a higher quality display. Not awful, but noticeable. Actually, this line is also applicable to the bezels. Those are pretty thick, thicker than almost any bezels in any smartphone as of now. And yes, they look ugly, but if you remember my last video on the XR, which is also my first video on the XR, I said the bezels are uniformly thick, meaning the chin is still pretty thin. And when you put this into a case, some portion of the bezels gets covered, so they appear slightly thinner. That's just my way of dealing with it. But I will say that I've gotten used to it, and it does not affect my experience. In fact, I would say the XR has been one of my favorite media consumption devices this year, irrespective of the lower res display, and that's mainly because of the speakers. The speakers on this phone are not the best because they can muffle at high volumes, but coming from an iPhone 7, these are massive upgrades because they are much louder. Both the channels are balanced, unlike in the Pixel 3, and the stereo is amazing. Also, because this is a new hardware design of iPhone, there is Face ID instead of Touch ID, as we all know. This happens to be the second generation, and I feel it is finally at that level where I would prefer this over Touch ID. I might be the only person to say this, but I think it's just as quick, even more accurate, fails rarely, works even when you're wearing a band or a cap, and you need not worry about your fingers being wet with Touch ID. The only thing that I wish it did extra was work in landscape orientation like it does with the new iPad Pro. So for example, you're watching the most important video in the world while having your food like you always do, and at the most important moment, which is the climax, your mom calls you out like she always does. By the time you return, the phone would have been locked because the sleep time was set to 30 seconds by default, and in order to unlock it, you would have to either manually type in the password or just change the orientation of the phone, and if your hands are dirty, I hope you get it, Apple. But let's talk about the software, because that will be different for people coming from both the groups, since the way you use this phone has evolved into gestures, which I actually like. Now, I used the iPhone X when it came out for a good chunk of time, and this is also probably just me, but the gestures just feel much more smoother now. I don't know if it's iOS 12 or is it the new Bionic chip, or there is something being done at the back end, but it's just buttery smooth, consistent frame rates. Also, my issues with app compatibility that I talked about in my last 10-hour video have been resolved. So yes, PUBG has finally adapted to the new display size, and the notch does not cut into the UI, which is pretty cool. Speaking of PUBG, the performance has been incredible. I play on the highest graphics and there are no frame drops or hiccups or even mild heating, which is incredible. I've also been on just cellular network for a couple of days, and because this has so many antenna bands, the pressure of the network gets divided. This also increases the speed, and because the pressure gets divided, the load per band is less. This helps in increasing the battery life. In fact, the battery life on the 10R is the best battery life I've ever gotten on any phone that I've ever used. It's wildly better than the iPhone 7, it's better than the Pixel 3, better than the XS, better than the XS Max. It's just great. I've been getting a consistent more than 5.5 hours of screen on time, sometimes even 6. Basically, it's an easy more than 1 day battery life if you don't game on it, and at least 1 day if you do game on this. Personally, I don't even charge this to a complete 100% now, not because it's got a really slow charger, although that definitely helps, but because even if I get to 75%, that's basically enough for me for the entire day. That is pretty incredible. The only place in software where I found this to have an issue was with the power button, or actually the sleep animation. So when you press the button to lock the phone, it takes noticeably long for the screen to go numb. I actually put this aside to an iPhone 7 just to confirm, and sure enough, there is clearly a delay, which still hasn't been fixed with the latest update. But that, along with very few random glitches, are the only bugs that I found in the software. On a side note, reachability comes disabled by default, so you would have to go into settings and accessibility to enable that. That's all. Okay, finally, the camera. Now, for some, it's the best camera they've used on a phone. It's also been given the highest score by DxOMark for a single lens camera, and I'm pretty sure that would have impressed a lot of people. But that's while not considering the Pixel 3, which is a direct alternative to the 10R. I actually just got the Pixel 3, and I think it all comes down to personal preference. Now, although I could not differentiate them on the basis of crispiness because images from both of them are just so detailed, but the iPhone's strategy is to evenly light up everything, the shadows, the highlights, everything in the frame, which makes the images look flat, maybe even dull sometimes. The Pixel 3, however, has an insane post-processing which provides the images with a much more appealing contrast when compared to the natural look of the iPhone. Now, if you are someone who uses his or her phone camera a lot, and for whom this comparison matters a lot, I actually have a camera comparison video in the works, so make sure to stick around for that. But for me, because I don't use the camera a lot, I don't really care about whether the image looks closer to real life. I care about whether the image itself is beautiful, meaning I choose the Pixel 3. Also, the software of the Pixel 3, which basically makes the camera what it is in a different league of its own. The portrait mode is much more accurate, the selfie camera has a wider lens, and night sight is just another video itself. So as a complete camera package, I think the Pixel offers more, but as a complete phone package, which includes the battery, the performance, the operating system, the design, I would still choose the 10R. So there you have it, that's the iPhone 10R, that's what I think about it, that's my experiences. If you have the money, go for it, and make sure to get the Rhino Shield case, because otherwise it's like calling the devil. Talk to you in the next one. Take care.